Hello and welcome back to the Checkpoint Reach podcast. This is our series of gaming lists. We did do a PS1 gaming list if you want to check that in our archive. We've now moved on to the top 5 PS2 games. We must stress these are our favourite games, and as ever, I am joined by my fellow friends and gamers, Sud, Matty and Perks. How you doing, guys?
Very good, yeah. Looking forward to doing this list. Should be a contentious one, PS2. So
yeah, it will be. We got a full list this time because we got Matty back from his travels in Tokyo.
Hello there.
See if Matty's Octopus makes the top 5, shall we?
Yeah.
We shall. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Anyway, moving on to the top list. Number 5 is PS5, which I'm very pleased about because this game brought me a lot of joy as a kid. Me and Matty took Scotland to the World Cup final to finally win it. What a moment
Well,
that
we
was,
could
Matty.
probably provide some context. Essentially, we give ourselves a challenge on this game to win the World Cup with Scotland, who were absolutely atrocious on PES. They had no quick players, which was just like the main ingredient you needed was pace in any football game. And we were trying this literally for a decade because we tried it in school and failed numerous times. There's the infamous story of playing at 3 o'clock in the morning and conceding to a Frank Lampard overhead kick from 25 yards in the 90th minute that nearly made me cry, nearly made me jump out the window. But we went back to it.
I've ever felt as down as I did in that moment on a game, to be honest. That was atrocious.
Yeah. We went back to it 10 years later and managed to win it. So
we did. All
good time.
Yeah, I've got to say as well that, even though it wasn't on my top 5, definitely the best football game of that generation. I don't think there's any real doubt about that.
Well, I think the reason why it's in the list, for me personally, and I know Eldon will probably think the same thing, I think it's the best football game ever made for pure enjoyment purposes, because I've never had as much fun.
It was good.
It obviously, for people listening, if you're maybe American, you won't really know about soccer games or think that they should be in a top 5 list. But for personal enjoyment, the amount of enjoyment we all got out of that game, it was just an exceptional football game. And still to this day is, for pure gameplay and pure enjoyment purposes, the best football game ever made, in my opinion.
It really is.
I was just going to say, I think my fondest memory, and Perks might not like this one, is when we played it at your house, Matt, and I actually managed to beat Perks 4-0, and you had a slight breakdown there.
This was many years after the unbeaten streak to end all unbeaten streaks was actually beaten by Luke and not you. But yeah, that streak went on for about 7 years or however long it was. So when it came
still
to
a great
an end,
moment.
it was such a sad time.
Look,
they say never go back, and I went back and paid dearly for it.
I will, to defend Perks. Perks was unbelievable at this game at one point, and it took me like a year to beat him, and I finally beat him with Hog Air. However, Matty and Sud, not as unbeatable because I beat them with a broken wrist when I was only using my mouth to pass, shoot, and cross.
Yeah, that's not the fondest memory.
No,
of the game.
I think we'll move on from there to save you two any embarrassment on that, and we'll move to number 4, which was Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. Which this is a game again. A lot of enjoyment. I got a lot of enjoyment out of it. A story, as ever in Metal Gear, just hooked me in. Fantastic game.
Yeah, I mean it's my favourite Metal Gear Solid game. I've not played the first one, so obviously we discussed that on the PS1 list, so obviously that's got to take that into account. But out of the other, I played all the others, and 3 is my favourite one. I think the setting was fantastic. It was a breath of fresh air for the franchise at the time. The bosses obviously are memorable. You got like B-Man, haven't you? And B-Man, and who was the? What was the? Can you remember what the one in the chair was called?
Death or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, the one in the old man in the chair. Yeah. You could snipe him early, couldn't you? If you found the right spot. You
didn't even have to fight him sometimes. No, you just wait and he dies.
The bosses were so fun in that game. And obviously, the endings. What a great ending it is to the game. The best ending in Metal Gear for me. That ending with the big boss at the end. It's an emotional scene. It's great.
It's done well.
So, I think it's a fantastic game.
It made your list as well, Matty. Another game that you enjoyed from your past.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of them. It's one of them games. I remember when it first came out. I was a bit skeptical, really, as to whether a prequel would work because I'd never really seen that sort of thing done in a game before. Obviously, now it's commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
You've made 3 games. What do? Make a prequel. Everyone loves a good prequel. But yeah, the way it ties into the Metal Gear story as a whole, like it's a absolutely crucial piece of plot as well as being a prequel. So it's one of them things. It just worked really well, and obviously bring in the stealth elements of the gameplay to a sort of open world, if you like, environment. Again, that worked perfectly. Having to eat snakes off the floor to survive and stuff.
Yeah, it definitely did bring some good elements to it. However, Perks, it didn't make your list, which I was actually surprised by.
It was close. I really enjoyed Metal Gear 3 and 2, but for me, they just didn't eclipse 1, and I always wanted more from the sequels, so, or at least in number anyway. But I really like the games, just not in my top 5.
That's fair enough. I think I'm with you there. Metal Gear Solid 1 on PS1 is still the best of the franchise. However, moving on to our number 3, which is Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Is it 2 or is it 1? Which one are we going with?
Well,
are we just going to go with both?
I assume 2, but we can go with both.
You can pretty much put both into 1, I suppose, because they're both very similar. So
we got a lot of enjoyment out of them all.
Yeah, my feeling on 1 versus 2. I think that 1's superior because you can't play as Sith and Jedi in the first game. Obviously, when the original Battlefront first came out, being able to play as a bog standard rebel or a bog standard stormtrooper was something that really appealed to me. And I think that simplicity really added sort of value to the game and made me want to keep coming back. I think Star Wars Battlefront 2, it improved in every area technically. But I think just adding in, that extra layer of complexity with Jedi running around, I think it just ruined the balance of the game for me personally. So that's why I'd go with 1 over 2.
It was number 2, wasn't it, Mai, that we played? And do you remember the fright when Luke Skywalker would appear on Bespin, and the only way you could kill him? Yeah. Oh, was it 1? Sorry. The only way you could kill him was throw a grenade.
You felt like you were a stormtrooper. When Luke Skywalker appeared, you felt like you were a stormtrooper, like, oh god, I've got no chance. I just need to run away.
It actually did feel like that.
Anyone remember Galactic Conquest as well? What a great mode that was on the game.
Man, that mode was fantastic.
What a fantastic mode that was. And also, I think why 1 is more memorable to me is because of the Bespin platforms. The most infamous map on the game. I mean, what an absolute brilliant map that was. And the one where, if you remember, Marty, you actually managed to kill Darth Vader once.
Yeah, I threw a thermal detonator at him and he tried to dodge it and jumped off the map.
That was pretty much the only way you could kill him.
Yeah, it was like a glitch because he couldn't die. So
I think by the way that we agree then is Battlefront 1 that makes this list. Because we seem to all prefer it. I just got mixed up and put Battlefront 2 down for some reason.
I like both. I think Battlefront 2 was good as well, but I think 1 was where it first started and it had the best maps. And like you said, I think with 2 it became too overpowered, didn't it, with Jedi and stuff? So
yeah,
safe to say that it was more enjoyable back in the day than it is now.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I go along with that.
No doubt about that.
I was actually going to mention though, Perks, that this list hasn't been too kind to you because again, Battlefront was not on your top 5 list.
No, this list isn't my list. I'm not going to lie, and that's not even because I didn't play PS2 games a lot. I really did, but we've averaged things out, and my list has hit the bricks, if you like.
Fallen by the wayside.
I think that's more just indicative of the PlayStation 2 in general. There was so many good games on that console. It was an absolute golden era for gaming. You could have made a top 50 list, when we probably wouldn't have run out of games. So obviously, whittling it down to top 5. A lot of it's personal preference.
It really
It's been
is.
difficult.
Picking up on personal preference, number 2 on the list is Final Fantasy X, and this is one that did not make mine or Perks' list, but it was number 1 for both Matty and Sud. So I'll let you guys talk about this game.
Yeah, what a great game. It's not only my favourite PS2 game, it's possibly my favourite game of all time, so it was always going to be number 1 for me.
Wow, I didn't know that. All time.
Yeah, I think Matty as well would probably have it right up there. His all time as well. I think just an amazing game. The first Final Fantasy game I properly ever played. I had messed around with a few on the PS1 and stuff like that, but it was so good. It was, I mean, the story, the characters, the music, the gameplay. It was just everything about the game. I remember just being absolutely enthralled with it, and I played it. I probably played it through 2 or 3 times, and it was a long game. And not only that, when you finished the game, there was so much more to do. It was just fantastic. It really was.
Well, exactly. Yeah. After the game was finished, there was so much more content available. It seemed never ending. Obviously, I got all the legendary weapons, which was the main sort of end game content. And it's one of the only games, actually, that I haven't gone back to that I love, because I just hold it in that high regard. I know as soon as I go back and try and play the game again, you know, whether it was the remaster or, you know, whatever form that takes, whether it was the PS3, the PS4 remaster, whichever one it is, I'm just going to try and hold back from playing it again, because it's got that sort of perfect feeling in my head, like the game ended perfectly. I got exactly what I wanted from it. So, yeah, well, I think that's the only game I won't play a remaster of.
We talk, don't we, quite a lot on this podcast about, do games age well and things like that, and do they hold us? This game stands the test of time, because I played it back in 2015, the remaster on PS4, and it's still just as great as it was. It's still, I still had the same feelings when I played through the game again that I did on PS2. The gameplay holds up, the graphics hold up, the music holds up. That's why for me it's one of the greatest games of all time.
Well, I think it just fit as well with our age at the time, when we were just sort of getting into those more complex sort of games. Like, everyone's got a favourite Final Fantasy, and I think, you know, if you go 5 years ahead of us, most people think that 7 is the best. But I think, you know, you go to sort of our age group, and a lot of people will say 10, because they got the same sort of experience from 10 as a lot of those people got from 7. You know, that sort of perfect story, combat, exploration, everything was just on point, and it's a game that, you know, you really lost yourself in.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I can only speak for myself. I'm not sure if Perks did try it. I never got around to it. Maybe it's one of those that I've missed out on and I should really try.
Yeah, I never got around to it either, I'm not going to lie. It's just another JRPG for me, and maybe I miss out by not being a big fan of that genre, and I don't dispute that. I'm sure it's an amazing game. But for me personally, it just would never be one of my favourites.
No. And another game that didn't make Perks' list, but has made the top 5 list. Anyway, moving on to our number 1. And it's also another game that didn't make Perks' list. It's GTA San Andreas. This was my number 1. Perks and Sud had it. Matty and Sud had it coming in number 2. What a fantastic game this was.
Yeah, incredible game. It really was. I remember when it first came out, I'd been absolutely like, wow. Like, because I think it came out in 2004, and I don't think a game before it had done the things this game did with its graphics, with the storytelling, with the gameplay. You know, and I know some people don't like the whole, going to the gym and eating fast food, but at the time that was revolutionary.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. Such a cool game.
I think you mentioned sort of graphics, gameplay. I think its biggest strength was the size of the world, you know, how much there was to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was really revolutionary at the time. I remember seeing it in, back in the day when we didn't have access to the internet. I remember seeing it in a gaming magazine, and I was reading it and I was like, there's no way this is going to be in the game. There's no way it's going to be this big. There's not enough room on the DVD. But then obviously when you do get the game, it is that big. You know, you go back now and it feels like a relatively small world, but at the time it was absolutely mind-blowing.
Oh,
yeah. Because I remember
distinct areas.
Obviously, you'd go around the first island and think, wow, this island's massive. And then it was like, oh, you've got another 2 islands to go. It's like, wow, this is, even one island felt big enough. And it's like, you had 2 more.
It was a gigantic map, wasn't it, at the time? Yeah. But speaking of rumours, one thing that me and you did constantly look for, Matty, was Bigfoot, that we never found, and he was never in the game. So,
And to be fair to Rockstar, that Easter egg has been put in Red Dead Redemption twice.
Yeah.
And in GTA 5 as well. So,
they obviously
were in on the joke as well.
But do you know what else I remember about the game? The carrots. Some of the to be fair, CJ probably wasn't the greatest character as a main protagonist in GTA. There's no doubt about that. He's not the strongest, but the characters around him, Ryder, Big Smoke, the cop and stuff like that, were just
Samuel L. Jackson as the cop.
Yeah. What was his name?
Just
Johnson.
all the supporting characters in general. All the supporting characters in general. Like, Who were the two British guys as well? You know, when you get into Las Venturas and you've got a load of
I
missions.
can't remember the names, but yeah.
They were real life celebrities, but
Yeah.
you know, they were just put into the game. But I can't remember, but they made me chuckle quite a bit.
Danny Dyer was in GTA Vice City, but I can't think of the two guys that was in this one. What about you, Perks? What were your thoughts on San Andreas?
You know, San Andreas was an amazing game, but for me, it was all about Vice City. CJ was no Tommy Vercetti, and the hood was just no high life. Vice City was my number one, and you know, I can't ever come away from that. But look, without making too much of it, San Andreas, Vice City, GTA 3, all outstanding games, and I loved every one of them.
You know, I actually thought Vice City would be your favourite, Sud, because you can't swim in the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Vice City, yeah. I don't think you could swim in any of them, could you? But the 3 as well, you couldn't swim in. I don't know.
You can't swim in 3, I know that.
I don't know about San Andreas. Can't remember if you can swim in that one or not.
It's the first one, because I remember just diving down and trying to find stuff on the seabed, and obviously there was
you can find like oysters and things like that. Yeah, I remember that. But yeah, what a great game San Andreas is. And I think, to be fair, most people, I don't think many people have complaints with a GTA game of that era. You know, whichever of the 3 you chose, people wouldn't really complain, I don't think. It's
a fitting game to top our top 5 PS2 list. And yeah, we want to move this on then to a couple of our honourable mentions. I'll go first. For me, Lord of the Rings, The Third Age. That game was it was such a good game. So much
what a fun game.
So many fun memories looking back, and yeah, I was such a big Lord of the Rings fan, so playing that game and following obviously the Fellowship.
I mean, it was just so cool. It was basically they put elements of like Final Fantasy and stuff into Lord of the Rings. I mean, it was so good. Like the turn-based battle system. Mm-hmm. It was just so cool. Like this, I actually remember the story being really good as well. Like it wasn't throwaway. It was actually really cool. And you actually, spoilers, but the last boss you get to fight the Eye of Sauron. I mean, how cool is that? It doesn't get much cooler.
Well, it's cool until you realise he can't beat you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he can't beat you. But it was such a cool thing, just being on the eye, like slashing the eye. It was so cool. Yeah, what a great game.
It definitely was. How about you guys? What are your honourable mentions?
Well, I'll go with mine first. It was my number 5 in my list, but it was The Sims, and I think, well, maybe I don't think Pert's a big fan of it, but I think us 3 can all say that what fun we had with The Sims back in the day. Especially the first one. They were all good, but the first one was so fun.
Yeah. Best thing about The Sims was taking the ladder off the swimming pool and ending people's lives.
That's the thing. What a great game. One of the best saves that me and Eldon had on that game was when we both had like girlfriends and we trapped them inside like a cupboard so they couldn't escape. They both died, and then the save got ruined because both of their ghosts kept turning up at the house and haunting us every night, so we couldn't sleep.
That was horrible.
Do you remember how fun it was though? Just building your own, like, I used to just build a massive mansion, and then like you could put like unlimited money on, couldn't you? And just buying like fridges and the best showers, and it was so cool.
It was definitely an enjoyable game. How about Matty and Perks? What are your honourable mentions?
Well, it's Time Splitters 2 for me. Absolutely brilliant shooting.
Another great game. Yeah, so much fun on that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got mates around and you want to play a split screen shooter, that was probably my go-to shooter. For split screen. I know Battlefront was one that we played a lot, Eldon, but Time Splitters, I probably spent hundreds and hundreds of hours on that game just because it was so fun.
Do you remember as well, Matt, how fun the challenges were to do on Time Splitters 2? How fun were they? They were so fun and unique, the challenges.
Yeah.
So good. What a great game.
I'm really shocked hasn't been remade yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that. I'd love them to do a remake.
Maybe it will be in the future. We'll have to watch out for that. How about you, Perks? What's yours?
I'll finish off the honourable mentions by talking about Devil May Cry. Whilst I may not be a fan of JRPGs, credit where it's due to Capcom there, as much as a Resident Evil fan that I am, Devil May Cry is another one of their games I absolutely loved from an early age. In terms of the hack and slash genre, it's the first that I can remember getting involved in a big way, and everything about it, the sort of crazy, unbelievable extent of the bosses and how everything's so far-fetched and yet so enthralling at the same time. Devil May Cry, whether it's the first one, second, or third, which is probably renowned as one of the better ones, that's definitely something that should have been on my list in all likelihood. Well, it was on my list, number 2, I think.
I think for me, I'd say with Devil May Cry, it's the Gothic setting as well that makes it so unique. It's so cool, that Gothic setting, and I don't know about you, Perks, but I'm really looking forward to the new Devil May Cry, and the old ones. I'm hoping that they take stuff from the old ones because they were great games on the PS2.
Yeah, absolutely, they're amazing, and you've seen like the style system has stood the test of time anyway.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
something they still
So
use
fun
now.
to play.
Yeah.
So everything about that game was cool, and Dante is an amazing character.
Yeah.
So yeah, had everything.
Can I just shoehorn in another honourable mention so we don't get crucified by listeners? Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, that would be another honorable mention for me as well.
I mean, we could sit here and just keep naming, like I said, we could just keep naming games over and over again. But Resident Evil 4 was, for me, the best survival horror game ever made. I know Perks
best Resident Evil game as
but
well.
I think a lot of people probably would agree that Resident Evil 4 is the pinnacle of certainly modern survival horror. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be a lot of people that will agree with you. And if you don't agree with our list, put your list in the comments below. We'd love to see what made your top 5 PS2 games of all time. Thanks for joining me, guys, as ever. And if you're listening to us and want to get in touch with us on social media, you can do that by visiting our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter page, and just search for @ChetReachPod. So yeah, let us know in the comments your thoughts, if you agree with us or not, and we look forward to speaking again soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.